Hello and welcome to National Focus. I am Shakira Peer. In the headlines, Dominica records 2 new cases of COVID-19. Dominica has ranked the best country for CBI for the 4th consecutive year, and education stakeholders urge to adhere to protocols developed by the Ministry of Education. Details of the headline stories and more when we return.
Scary! Everything just shaking and making big creaky noises.
Earthquakes, big and small, take place in the Caribbean at least 10 times a year.
The dish is rattling and falling and breaking. Then Vonnie started to scream.
All I could think to do was shout, "Get outside, get out!"
Earthquakes, hazards, take control, reduce your loss. If an earthquake hits, what can you do? Get down, get under an item of furniture like a table. Hold on and stay there until the quake passes. Find out lots more about earthquakes and other hazards at your local disaster office. A message from your National Disaster Office and SEDERA.
Welcome back. Dominica records 2 additional cases of COVID-19. This announcement was made during a press briefing held on Tuesday. Dominica recorded its first case of COVID-19 in March, and now total cases recorded are 24.
We have now 2 new cases of COVID-19. That brings total number of confirmed cases of COVID to 24. These cases are imported cases and not contacts of previous cases. One is 59-year-old female and the other one is 35-year-old male. These individuals have been in isolation since arrived in Dominica on September 5th as a result of positive rapid test on arrival. Subsequently, PCR testing was done to confirm. Currently, they are asymptomatic and admitted to the COVID facility. Contact tracing is ongoing. So far, 6 direct contacts have been identified from these 2 individuals.
The borders will reopen to nationals on July 15th and for non-nationals on August 7th. The Dominica Air and Seaport Authority has been playing an integral role in this process. Chief Executive Officer of DASPA, Benoit Badwell, says DASPA's priority is to ensure that all citizens are safe.
Since the recommencement of commercial passenger activity from July 15, 2020, a multi-layered approach for seamless health screening was embarked upon to minimize the risk of importation of COVID-19. From July 15, 2020 to September 8, 2020, we have handled 298 flights and some 1,317 passengers have arrived on the island, and some 1,305 passengers have departed utilizing the Douglas Charles and Keenfield Airport. Before booking a trip to Dominica, all residents, nationals, and visitors must familiarize themselves with the entry protocols into Dominica.
Mr. Badwell outlined the protocols which should be adhered to upon entry into Dominica.
General protocols and guidelines. Passengers are required to wear face masks or face covering at all times during the arrival process, up to and including departure from the airport. Passengers must observe physical distancing at all times, and they must practice good respiratory etiquette and personal sanitization. Passengers must follow all instructions of healthcare providers and other officials. In terms of the terminal, all persons seeking to access to the ports of entry will be subject to temperature screening. Passengers, travelers, or persons seeking access to the ports of entry who do not meet the temperature screening requirements will be referred to the health hotline personnel or secondary screening personnel where possible.
Officer in charge in the Office of the Director of Primary Healthcare Services, Dr. Gilda Nesty Tong, says she's encouraging all who are to be quarantined to adhere to the rules and protocols of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment. Dr. Nesty Tong encouraged all to continue to follow the measures and protocols put in place by the ministry to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
I wish to reiterate the need to practice respiratory etiquette. Cough or sneeze into a tissue and toss that contaminated tissue into the trash. If a tissue is not available, a flexed elbow will suffice. Maintain proper hand washing, use of 70% alcohol-based hand sanitizers. When washing of hands is not possible, hand sanitizers will suffice. Wearing of your mask in public places is also encouraged. The wearing of the mask should be done properly. Do not wear the mask beneath the chin, nor on the forehead. Do not hang the mask from one ear and proceed to have a conversation with your listener. Ensure that the mask adequately covers the nose and mouth at all times.
Acting Deputy Chief of Police Davidson Valerie thanked the public for their cooperation in this fight against COVID-19 in Dominica. DCP Valerie says the police is acting on any report made regarding COVID-19.
I want to thank the many citizens who have provided invaluable information to the police. All reports received were processed. Stemming out of these investigations, 2 men were arrested and taken into quarantine during the last 24 hours. Other individuals whom the public had concerns about were checked and cleared. We are aware of the concerns of the public in relation to the individuals who were recently arrested. But we have been in pursuit of these 2 men for the past 48 hours.
DCP Valerie says the police force has instituted new measures and has appointed a selected team of officers to deal with reports specific to COVID-19.
We continue to partner with the Custom and Excise Department in monitoring our borders. Those officers have very strict instructions to deal with anyone found illegally entering or leaving the Commonwealth of Dominica. And they will use every legal means necessary to deal with the offenders. I urge all of us to adhere to the warnings and advice given by the relevant authorities and the police. The Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force pledges its commitment to enforce the law of the Commonwealth of Dominica and will do whatever is practicable to prevent illegal entries into Dominica and to bring the perpetrators to justice.
The Commonwealth of Dominica has ranked first for the 4th consecutive year as the country offering the best citizenship by investment program. This was according to the 2020 CBI Index published by Financial Times Professional Wealth Management magazine on September 8, 2020. Dominica continues to balance an excellent reputation for meeting the needs of investors with strong due diligence, a low minimum investment outlay, efficient processing, and a renewed focus on family reunification. Recent reports indicate that Dominica continues to offer one of the most sibling-friendly programs. This makes provision for a wider age eligibility, allowing those who have obtained Dominican citizenship to add more dependents after the initial applications such as newborns, new spouses, and pre-existing dependents. The country scored a maximum points in 6 pillars to include measuring family appeal and the program's certainty. Other pillars Dominica scored top marks in includes lack of mandatory travel or residence.
I must say on behalf of the staff of the CBI unit, we are quite elated to have been ranked the #1 program again for the 4th consecutive year by the Financial Times of London. The Financial Times is a world organization which is highly regarded all over the world. They conduct an independent assessment, and for the 4th consecutive time chose Dominica as the best program in the world. I must say it says a lot for Dominica, it says a lot for the unit, it says a lot for the program of Dominica Citizenship by Investment. They look at a number of factors in assessing who is the best. That of course includes longevity, and we have been around for 28 years, been very solid. They look at due diligence, which is also very, very important for us. It's the cornerstone of what we do in our program, ensuring that the vetting of each applicant individually is very well done. Of course, there is the economic threshold in that people could invest in Dominica, and among that is that could be easily reached and afforded by our investors. So that too is important for us. And our passport index, that is the number of countries our citizens, our Dominicans can travel with a Dominican passport, is amazing. We've moved from 120 to now 140, and we will be increasing shortly. So really and truly, the value of what we do is highly recognized.
The Citizenship by Investment program was established in 1993 and aims to boost foreign economic contributions to Dominica in order to expand its economy and meet the demands of the modern competitive global markets. Schools were officially reopened on Monday, September 7, 2020 under numerous protocols and guidelines developed and implemented by the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment. Before the start of the 2020-2021 academic year, schools were closed from March 22, 2020 after Dominica recorded its first COVID-19 case. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence, Mrs. Chandler Hyacinth, says with the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ministry of Education had to develop a comprehensive manual to guide a successful reopening of schools.
The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly impacted on the education system in Dominica. There was significant disruption of the regular functioning and education of our educational institutions, as well as learning of our students and the ability of our teachers and schools to deliver effective teaching. As a result, a plan utilizing appropriate guidelines and protocols for the reopening of schools and other learning institutions within the ambit of the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence has been developed, and this will serve as a tool for the effective and efficient reopening and continuation of schooling.
Mrs. Hyacinth says that once these guidelines are distributed, all schools are expected to follow and enforce these protocols.
We expect that once we have circulated these guidelines, all stakeholders are expected to support the implementation of these guidelines within their schools and under the terms of the existing management and supervision frameworks within the Ministry of Education. And we are doing this in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment and other relevant authorities. And as we are moving along, we expect that there will be continuous assessments and reporting on the adherence of these guidelines.
The Permanent Secretary gave a brief summary of what some of the protocols entail in regards to hygiene.
The guidelines have been developed mainly in the areas of hygiene, the hygiene measures that will be taken to include hand washing, respiratory etiquette, cleaning procedures for facilities, and safe food preparation practices. All, as I said already, all educational institutions are to implement these guidelines. The key objectives here are to educate engage and empower persons so that we can get a change in their behavior. And the main aim of these guidelines are preventing and controlling the spread of COVID-19.
Mrs. Hyacinth says the guidelines were created with the safety of students and staff in mind. She says the protocols are categorized based on every person entering the school compound.
These guidelines are specific to education. And the core recommendations are in the area of health and safety. The protocols are considered in 4 categories. Protocols before the opening of schools, protocols during school hours, protocols to be observed after school, and individual protocols. The protocols are categorized and based on the school public, for students, for teaching staff and principals, for auxiliary staff, that is cleaners, caretakers, security personnel, parents and guardians, and visitors to learning institutions.
The Permanent Secretary says that individual responsibility will be required if these protocols are to be effective.
And the basic measures are physical distancing, hand washing, the wearing of masks, and staying home if one has any acute respiratory infection. Given the above, we recognize the fundamental role of individual responsibility, whether as parent, as student, as principal, teacher, or any officer of the Ministry of Education.
Mrs. Hyacinth added that significant work was done by the ministry to ensure schools were ready to receive students on September 7.
Schools were provided with cleaning supplies. They are being supplied with sanitation wardens, cleaners, and this process is ongoing. We have also assisted schools through training for staff, especially on the implementation of physical distancing, training on school hygiene practices. We have conducted training for auxiliary workers with the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and New Health Investment, all in an effort to implement the rules and protocols related to cleaning and sanitizing of the classroom.
You're watching National Focus. More when you return. Welcome back. The government of Dominica continues to find ways to create employment for citizens and to stimulate the local economy. One of the new ways in which the government of Dominica will be improving the local economy is with the introduction of the Dominica Entrepreneurship Visa Program. Under the Dominica Entrepreneurship Visa Program, foreign investors that start a business in an approved sector or who invest in an existing approved local business or pursue the option of a joint venture with a local business owner will be granted resident status.
The overall objective of this program is to widen Dominica's economic base by expanding business activity and creating new jobs. We are moving forward with this initiative at a time when we must source new and creative ways to generate revenue and boost economic activity owing to the adverse impact of COVID-19 on economies worldwide.
Mr. Kenny Green of Advanced Global Partners is partnering with government for this initiative. A committee was put in place for the advancement of this program, and Mr. Green was appointed chairman for that committee.
The first thing is to be able to articulate what it is, what are the qualification standards, how it is going to be effected, how a company is going to apply and qualify, the documentation needed, and the supporting apparatus, because the supporting apparatus is going to be crucial in making this happen.
This new entrepreneurship visa program is different from the citizenship by investment program. Mr. Green explained the ways in which residency will be obtained for this new program.
The CBI makes no demand on the applicant for residency. So that's one of the reasons for their popularity. As you know, there are many different CBI programs in the world, over 40 at last count. And so therefore, the fundamental difference is that as an RBI, the entrepreneur visa requires that the applicant spend substantial time in Dominica, 90 days and for each calendar year. And that, like other RBIs, means that the applicant has to become a resident here, has to become a consumer here, has to become lodged here. And that has a totally different impact. It's a different requirement, a totally different impact, and a different client as well.
He outlined the objectives of the program.
As you know, you as the Minister of Finance with that hat on, the government has put out many initiatives in terms of putting finance available at the aid bank and also encouraging financial institutions to produce or to provide aggressive terms for clients. But many very viable businesses have issues with having security and collateral. What this does is it adds grant finance at one level so that people can mitigate against their inability to have security. And at another level, as you mentioned earlier, it's going to have the participants in the program, the applicants, residing here, consuming here, actually interacting not just with business and consumers here, but with the country on a whole.
On Wednesday, September 4, 2020, the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Community Development held a contract signing for the upgrading of the Woodfordale playing field under the Basic Needs Trust Fund BNTF 9 project. Octavia Prosper has more.
The total cost of the project is $742,500 and was contracted to Regional Contractors Limited. Project manager of the Basic Needs Trust Fund, Mr. Matthew Carrett, says one major aspect of the project is to ensure the field has proper drainage.
One component is the field drainage, very important. That would involve all the trenching and some block work, the drainage layer, the perforated pipes, so all the substructure work to drain the field properly. That is one main aspect of the project.
Mr. Carrett says the access road to the playing field will also be improved.
The second major aspect of the project is really the field work. We have to do some excavating, leveling, and compacting, provision of topsoil, and importantly, grassing of the field surface. And then the other component is the access road improvement. And accompanying that you have the construction of some concrete drains. So that is, in a sense, is the works that will be undertaken under this contract.
Mr. Carrett says BNTF recognizes the importance of sports and the project is expected to be completed by the end of 2020.
There's a heavy focus on youth and BNTF, and we know that sports is one way that you can assist the youth in developing themselves. So I present this project to you, and I ask for your fullest cooperation with the contractor, and we hope that in about 4 to 5 months' time, we can realize a newly upgraded playing field at Woodford Hill.
Parliamentary representative for the Wesley constituency, Honorable Fidel Grant, says he is pleased to be a part of the fulfillment of this commitment.
Upon entering the political arena, the people of Woodford Hill welcomed me into their homes, their lives with no conditions. I became very encouraged by the genuine love for the community and the eagerness to work together to develop the community of Woodford Hill. Within a short time, I saw the need for a total reform of the community to empower persons to reach their goals. One of the requests from the villagers was the completion of the Woodford Hill playing field. And I am happy today that we can stand here and fulfill this commitment.
Honorable Grant urged the contractors to employ persons within the constituency and encouraged his constituents to take advantage of the employment opportunities.
This project is in excess of $700,000. I urge the contractor, who is present here today, to try his best to utilize our local skilled men, and I urge the young men and women within the constituency to take advantage of employment opportunities which may arise.
The parliamentary representative also called on residents of Wesley and Woodford Hill to form sporting groups to utilize the field.
I hope to see our young people utilize this facility in a manner that empowers them physically, mentally, and emotionally. I urge you, the villagers, to form and revive your sporting groups, your clubs, and organize events to utilize this playing field. This is an opportunity to invite other teams from around the country to participate in activities here in Woodford Hill. The entire community stands to benefit from the use of this facility. I urge our vendors to see this as an opportunity to earn income from selling food and drinks when we have events here at this playing field.
Meantime, Minister for Sports, Culture and Community Development, Honorable Rosalind Paul, says the enhancement of this playing field will assist with the further development of youth in the Wesley constituency.
When a community benefits from a facility like that, it is not only a community, but maybe the entire region, northeastern region, and even the wider Dominican society. And this project is very, very important to the community, but sports is sort of synonymous with youth development. When you speak sports, often you speak of youth active participation and their career, even their career development. We learned of a number of young people making a lot of strides in sports, even in the absence of a proper facility. So we would all imagine that with the improvement in sporting facility in this playing field, that we would expect much greater achievements and accomplishments among the young people in particular of this area.
Sports coordinator Mr. Trevor Shillingford thanked government and BNTF for their continued investment in sporting facilities across the island.
We urge residents to give support to the project and to take ownership of it when completed. Thanks to the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica for the continued investment in sports facilities. This upgrade is happening at a time when recent announcements were made of available funds in this year's national budget for the commencement of the indoor sports complex at Stock Farm. It is also happening at a time when the Massac indoor facility is nearing completion. It is now left to the athletes to ensure that use is made of the facilities and that such improved facilities lead to the improvement in performances and participation. Basic Need Trust funds must be complemented for including sports as part of their programs for funding and for remaining steadfast in their efforts to see this project to implementation.
Octavia Prosper for the Government Information Service.
The government of Dominica remains committed to assisting the most vulnerable in society through cash transfer grants and other programs. As one of government's many initiatives, the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disabilities, in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, Resilience, Economic Affairs, Investments, Planning, Sustainable Development, Telecommunication and Broadcasting, and the World Food Programme, WFP, has launched a COVID-19 response social cash transfer program to assist vulnerable persons who were affected by the socio-economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Director for the Caribbean World Food Programme, WFP, Mr. Regis Chapman, says the cash transfer program will aid beneficiaries' families with their immediate needs.
While this provides only temporary relief, our aim is to not only keep vulnerable people afloat, but also allow for people to adapt and strengthen their livelihoods. These cash transfers will help beneficiary families meet their immediate needs, including food, health, education, and other necessities.
Mr. Chapman says the selection process for potential beneficiaries will commence later this week.
Later this week, we start efforts to identify and register potential beneficiaries, helping to fill gaps in the current levels of assistance being provided. The program will target some of the more vulnerable populations, including topping up assistance to beneficiaries of the Public Assistance Program, as well as extending assistance to vulnerable groups such as fisherfolk, fish vendors, small craft vendors, and producers, and elderly and disabled people.
Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disabilities, Honorable Dr. Addis King, says the cost of the program is over $2 million EC dollars.
Today, through my ministry, the government is launching the joint social cash transfer with the assistance of the World Food Programme. It is valued at EC $2,037,675. This cash flow will undoubtedly provide an increase in the incomes of our households and help families cope with the consequences of the shock brought about by COVID-19.
Minister King says the program was launched to address the needs of the most vulnerable in Dominica.
Prior to the onset of COVID-19 in Dominica, my government remained committed to meeting the needs of the vulnerable in our population. Over 40 safety net programs have been implemented by this government to address the needs of the vulnerable and reduce the level of poverty in our country. This social cash transfer is one of the strategies aimed at enabling beneficiary households to increase household consumption and cope with the negative impact of COVID-19.
Minister King says the cash transfer program consists of 2 components and 30 individuals will also be temporarily employed.
The transfer will build on 2 main components. The first will be a temporary vertical expansion of the public assistance program, ensuring that all people registered automatically qualify for this assistance. In the second case, there will be a temporary horizontal expansion of the public assistance, extending the assistance to those who were not receiving the benefits but were affected by COVID-19 quarantines, shutdowns, and the curfews. Simply put, beneficiaries of the public assistance will automatically receive a top-up to their existing disbursements. However, the Ministry of Youth Development will execute a nationwide drive to facilitate applications to identify other eligible households who can also benefit. During the implementation, we will provide short-term employment to at least 30 persons in Dominica.
The application form can be filled out virtually and 3,000 persons are expected to benefit from the program.
It is important to note that the application form will be completed digitally, and the software provided by the World Food Programme will automatically select households based on various vulnerability factors. It is expected that approximately 3,000 households will benefit. These include recipients of the Public Assistance Program, persons with disabilities, children, foster care households, senior citizens, pregnant women, single female-headed households, among others. Selected households will receive between $55 to $150 monthly for a period of 3 months. The size of the transfer increases according to the number of household members and vulnerabilities.
Minister King says the selection process for potential beneficiaries is based on gaps identified from other government income support programs.
The beneficiary categories will include elderlies, persons living with disabilities, fisher folks and vendors, small craft producers and vendors. These groups were carefully selected based on opportunities and gaps identified from other government income support programs.
Minister King looks forward to a continued partnership with WFP and encourages successful recipients to use their resources wisely.
On behalf of the government and people of Dominica, I take this opportunity to express our profound gratitude to the World Food Programme for considering Dominica, and also for the commitment to continue to assist us with the implementation of the information management system for all government safety net programs. Let me also express thanks to the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, who assisted in the process of the formulation of this cash transfer program. I urge all recipients of this program to use your resources wisely. Let us work together to reduce the impact of this pandemic on our society.
The minister says she remains committed to meeting the needs of the most vulnerable in society.
As Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disability, I remain committed to meeting and understanding the specific needs of our most vulnerable populations. These include persons with disabilities, children, our senior citizens, pregnant women, single female-headed households, and persons living with chronic illnesses among us. Recognizing that COVID-19 will only worsen the situation of vulnerable groups remains a major concern, but we continue to work with our many partners to assist in cushioning the effects of the pandemic on these households.
And now your weather update. A weak high-pressure system is expected to be dominant across the Lesser Antilles during the next 12 to 24 hours. A light wind regime and daytime heating will favor the development of localized showers and possible isolated thunderstorm activity across parts of the island chain during the period. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Paulette continues its west-northwestward motion near 47 degrees west, and Rene, located over the eastern tropical Atlantic, regains tropical storm status. Based on current projected paths, these storms are not expected to pose a direct threat to Dominica. However, residents should continue to keep updated on weather information. Slight to moderate seas are expected during the next 24 hours, with waves peaking near 5 feet. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I am Shakira Pear. Thanks for watching.